but it's the place in your chart where spiritual and physical wealth meet, right?
Welcome to Witch Talks, the series for spiritual seekers, witches, and enlightened souls. I'm Hana the Suburban Witch, professional tarot reader, astrologer, and witch, and I hope you're ready to get up close and personal with your favorite witches. Hello and welcome. Happy Halloween, Samhain, or Beltane for tomorrow if you celebrate. We are going to jump right into our episode today, but I just wanted to let you know that if you are newer to astrology and if astrology speak seems really foreign to you, that's okay. This episode is still for you. There are parts in this where our beautiful guest, Katherine, talked about things that I don't know about, and I am a professional astrologer, but there is so many different types and ways to do astrology. Nobody knows it all. You will never know it all. So if you feel out of depth, that's okay. That's allowed. And actually that's where we grow, where we learn. And you might hear something and think, ooh, that's interesting, and go on a little deep dive, a little rabbit hole. And that is wonderful. So let that happen. There is a few topics around Vedic astrology, which is Indian astrology. It's very different to what I normally talk about, which is modern astrology. So I think most of us listening are going to be like, oh, cool, that's something new for me. But I never want you to feel like you can't listen to an episode because you don't know enough. That's definitely not what this is about. In fact, this is the best way to learn. Whilst I've got you, I am opening up my course, The Art of Psychic Divination, on November 1st for the final live run of this course. I will not be doing a live one again. So if you don't want to miss out on that, and you do not want to miss out on that, definitely make sure to jump on the wait list, which gives you all of the information and all the links as soon as the doors open. And if you sign up in the first 24 hours, you will save $300, which is massive. All right, so are you ready to learn how to enhance your wealth with astrology and with your birth chart? Hell yeah, you are. Let's get into it. In this episode, I'm chatting with Katherine Wehler, an astrologer with 20 plus years of experience who assists others in exploring, rediscovering, and empowering their soul's highest self and true potential. She is also a new paradigm business and soul coach, human design reader, and Akashic Record guide. Katherine also hosts the Soul Rediscovery podcast. I'm so looking forward to sharing her work and wisdom with you all today. So let's get into it. She's joining us via Zoom all the way from San Diego in the US. Hey, Katherine, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm so glad to have you here. I'm a fellow astrologer, but all of our listeners may or may not be. So we're going to keep this chat inclusive of like basic beginner intro astrology, and we're going to hopefully add in some more advanced techniques as well for those who are interested. But before we do, can you tell me what type of astrology you practice? Like what housing systems do you use? Are you a traditional or modern astrologer? All of that jazz.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've dabbled with a bunch, but the parts that I use in my work, I am a Western astrologer. So I practice tropical Western astrology. I've studied Vedic for fun. And
Amazing.
sometimes I go into it with my private clients that I've had for a while, especially the nakshatras. I've gone super deep into. Um, but mostly with people I work with, Western tropical astrology, and I primarily use Placidus house system. I'm a huge Placidus girly. I could go on a whole rant about Placidus. I know most people are whole sign people these days, but I just find Placidus to be a million times more accurate. Especially because I have clients internationally. So a lot of times, like I have one client who was born super far north, and his whole sign is just radically different than his Placidus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And as a fellow Placidus girly, absolutely 100% agree.
Yeah.
And so many astrologers are whole sign astrologers, and I get that.
Yeah.
But personally, my chart changes. Like my sun jumps in whole sign, it's in the eighth house, and in Placidus, it's in the ninth, which for me just makes so much more sense. And I was born fairly far south, in the very south of Australia, not in South
Yep.
Australia, in Victoria, but very southern part of Australia. So yes, when you add in the location aspects of all over the world and really extreme areas, it radically shifts the chart. It changes it so
Yeah.
much, and it just gives you more nuance, I think, in a lot of areas. So yes, I'm totally on board with this. So absolutely
Yeah.
excellent.
I mean, I think like whole sign has its time and place. I think especially for people who are beginners and, not interested in like really learning astrology and just kind of DIYing it and going, okay, what is the, general overview of this transit that I'm going to go through or something like that. I can see how that's helpful, or I can see how it's helpful on something like the Chani app,
Mm-hmm.
versus Placidus. But I think for most people who are professional astrologers, like I would say the good majority use Placidus. I don't know if you saw it, but there was like a 4 hour episode on the astrology podcast around Placidus house system and like why it's the preferred house system for professional astrologers. And like I just nerded out on the whole thing.
I need to add that to my two. Is that a
Yeah.
recent one?
Yeah, it was so good. It was like this, old man astrologer going like deep into like the history and like again, it was like maybe one of the nerdiest astrology things I've ever done in my life
Oh, I
listening to
love that.
that. But I was like, see, I told y'all so.
So the nerd, speaking of the nerdiest things, I just got back from Europe where I went to an astrology summer camp at Oxford University.
Oh my God, how fun. I love Oxford.
So amazing. Like nerdy astrology. Like I just literally nerded out on astrology with everyone and
That is
anyone for a whole
so
week.
cool. Oh my God, did you guys like stay in the dorms and everything too?
Yes, we stayed on campus. It was
Oh my God, I
beautiful.
love.
It was magical. It was really cool. It was
It's like real life Harry Potter. I mean, they
Mhm.
literally filmed there, but it's like being because I when I was a professional actor, I did a summer program in Oxford
Yep.
here with the Yale School of Drama. And it was just, I mean, I was like right in that age too. I was like 21. So it was like even more like, oh my God, like the magic.
Absolutely. Whilst I was there, the School of Divinity was closed because they were filming Young Sherlock Holmes. I was like, ooh.
Oh my God, it's so magical. And then the places like outside of it too, like you can see why it inspired like Chronicles of Narnia and Alice in Wonderland and
Mhm.
good.
Absolutely. On the first day of classes, the very last class, because there was 4 per day and then a lecture in the evening as well. And on the very first day, the very last class, there was like 3 options. None of them really spoke to me. So
Yes.
me and fellow astrologer Tanae Stewart decided to skip class and go and like romp through a graveyard in Oxford that we found. It's this like really
Yeah.
tiny, overgrown old graveyard covered in blackberries. Like it
Yes.
was magical. Like that is where fairies live. And yes, you can absolutely see like this is why we have things like Narnia. Absolutely. This is
Yeah.
beautiful.
Oh
So
my
much
God.
scope for the imagination.
I literally just used to sit in like, what is it? Like the Rose Tea Room,
Mm-hmm.
which is like really close to campus and just like people watch for hours. Like it was, and oh my God, it's such a magical place. I crave a cream tea like every single day and I'm so sad, so hard to get out here.
Well, I can recommend Astrology Summer Camp if you ever want to go. It's every year at
Right.
Oxford.
Oh my God, send me the details. Like
I
I'm genuinely
will.
interested.
It's at the
Yeah.
Faculty for Astrological Studies, and like
Okay.
they are the ones that host it at Oxford. It's phenomenal.
Amazing. I love that. And it would be a business write-off.
Yeah, exactly, right? So speaking of business and finances and things like that,
Yeah.
we're talking about financial astrology and wealth astrology and things that can, I guess, enhance our financial status. So
Yeah.
what is your belief? Is our financial status predestined in our chart, or can we change it?
Oh my God. Okay. First of all, such a juicy question. And I feel like this is one that I get a lot too. And the thing is, right, is that you really have to look at astrology from an evolutionary perspective, right? It's not something where everything is finite and stagnant and never changing. And you're also provided this foundation at birth that your soul chose to move through, right? So there's going to be times where you're going through astrological periods that very much reflect your birth chart, right? I'm going through one of those right now. Like I keep joking. I'm like, hey guys, like this is what it feels like to be me always. Because it's like the south node is on my moon, the north node is on my sun, like the Saturn is on my natal Saturn, like Uranus is on my south node. So anyways, all of that to say that you have to look at it from that perspective because yes, you're starting with this foundation, but you're always building on top of that foundation. And I think just growing deeper into, what I would hope would be the higher frequency of that foundation. So what I mean by this is that we go through transits and we go through progressions, right? So we have our natal chart, but then we also have where all of the planets are transiting collectively, right? So right now, for instance, we all have Jupiter in Gemini. Some people are going to have that in their second house, which is going to affect them very literally, financially. And some people are going to have that, say, in their ninth house, right? And that's going to be a completely different side of life that they're experiencing and interacting with, right? And then we also have progressions, which I like to explain to new people as sort of like personal transits, right? So those tend to be a little bit slower than most collective transits, right? And so those are more so like where you are personally in your own self-development in your inner world, right? Like where's your progressed moon, where's your progressed sun, Venus, ascendant, that kind of thing. So when we look at all of this, right, when we really look at astrology as a whole, it's all about becoming a deeper version of yourself throughout your entire life, right? It's the same way we're born as a baby and we look like a baby, right? But now we look like people in their 30s or 40s or 50s, right? It's not saying that 15-year-old you is any less of you than baby you, right? Or that 100-year-old you is any less than baby you. In fact, I would argue it's the opposite, right? It's like as you go through time, you become more and more and more yourself, right? You fulfill more of your destiny, you go through more of your fated contracts. So, in essence, we all have a natal chart when we're born, and that natal chart is the key, right? That is what unlocks everything. So, every single one of us has a potential that we then get our entire lives to experience and interact with at the frequency that we choose to. So,
Mm,
yes, your financial status is locked in from birth. That being said, you get the choice of how and where you want to interact with that and what you want to build with that. So some
mm,
people are going to have more of a concentration there, like they might have Saturn or Mars, right? And I am personally not of the astrological opinion that that is a terrible or a bad thing the way I think other astrologers would view it. I have a lot of Pisces placements and I'm very like, anything is possible, right?
mhm,
So I think it's more so like if you have Saturn in your second house, right? Saturn is about discipline, it's about restriction, but it's also about mastery. Then you might go through financial challenges. But if you can look at it from the perspective of, I chose to go through these so that I can learn these lessons, so that I can teach these lessons, you might actually have at the end a much more masterful way of moving with money and with finances versus someone who doesn't have that and therefore make more versus it just being like, oh, I'm blocked, I'm restricted, I'll never make as much as someone who has like their Jupiter there, right?
mhm,
So I think it's really all about how do you come back to the gold in your own birth chart, because we all have challenges somewhere. We all have expansion somewhere. We all have trauma. We all have our sparkle, right? So it's like, again, how do you work with all of those pieces as a whole? And how do you see it as an evolutionary process that you're just further becoming you, but that developed higher frequency of you throughout your life?
I love that. I agree in terms of it being both fate and choice mixed
Yeah.
together, like a blend of both of them. You always have that birth chart. It is the promise, right? It's the promise of what your life could entail. And then things happen on top of that. I mean, if we're looking at forecasting techniques, we have obviously transits that are happening all the time. That's real time stuff that the planets are actually doing and we can see in the sky. And then your progressions, solar arc directions, whatever you're using for more symbolic things. But then there's that choice aspect of you can choose to interact with this or push back on it. You can choose to be like, well, fatalistic. I'm like, obviously, this is my lot in life. I'm done. Or you can choose, and this is the witchy side of it coming out as well, to work with that. Yes, to work with it. So, for example, if you have, issues with this like Plutonian energy and it's like in your
Yeah.
chart and you're kind of like pushing against it, it's always going to be difficult. But if you embrace that, maybe build, I don't know, an altar to Pluto or something, you're going to start being able to vibe with that better. You're going to be like, oh, actually, this energy is nice for me now. I've leaned into it. I'm not pushing back. And we all know as soon as you surrender in one way or another, things open up and get a little bit easier. So I love that. And it
Yeah.
also kind of flips back to the fact that you've got this like Vedic aspect as well, which is quite fate and destiny,
Yes.
minded in comparison to Western astrology, which is more like, no, we have the choice on how we can view this
Yeah.
or experience this. So it's an interesting blend. Do you think that's impacted how you see this sort of stuff?
I think studying Vedic astrology is truly what made me like decide, okay, I am fully an astrologer. Even after studying Western for over 20 years, Vedic, like specifically studying the Vedic nakshatras, and I'm a Libra moon, so I'm very interested in like the way that people look and like how, they might look like their parents or their siblings and like where those differences in the birth chart, right? I'm also Libra moon in the fourth house, Cancer rising. So we can see like connections here of
Yep.
like this interest in family and
Mhm.
lineage and right and aesthetics. And so it was really interesting because like my mom, my grandmother, and I are all Uttara Bhadrapada Nakshatra, like all of our sons. And my whole life, it's been like, oh, you look just like your mom, or you look just like your grandma, and we have that part of our personalities that is so similar too. And it's fascinating to me because it really showed me even more than Western. But then once I learned this, I deepened into seeing this in Western too, how we truly all have these cosmic paths. It's like we truly, on a scientific level, are literally made of stardust, right? And so, on that more spiritual, metaphysical, witchy, conscious, whatever you want to call it, right? Level, it's really beautiful because it's like, wow, we're all walking these unconscious paths. Like I, unbeknownst to me, was living my life exactly like an Uttara Bhadrapada, right? And continuing cycles that my mom and grandma had been doing with that same energy. But now that I'm conscious of it, it's like, oh, okay, I can move in a different way, right? I can still move with the gifts of that, but also when the challenges come up, I know where it's coming from and I can better address that. So I always
Mm.
like to say astrology is happening no matter what, right? And it goes back to the great saying of millionaires don't use astrology, billionaires do, right? Like I quote that all the time because it's happening no matter what. So it's up to you whether you want to consciously engage with it, like you were saying. And I think Vedic astrology, just to take it back to your original question, Vedic astrology really like pounded that into me that it truly is such an incredible tool for not just self-discovery, but self-mastery and really just being able to navigate this world in such a conscious way once you understand all the inner workings and like puzzle pieces that go into making the world. So even like, again, going back to that Uttara Bhadrapada thing, we each have this cosmic role that we're playing, and it's literally reflected in our physicality. Like it's literally reflected in the fact that we even look alike because we all hold that specific energy that's here to embody that. So I come from a performance background, and I think of the phrase from, William Shakespeare of the world is a stage and the men and women are merely players. We're each here in this lifetime and every lifetime to fulfill some kind of cosmic destiny, whether we're conscious of it or not.
So, because I haven't studied Vedic at all, I think it's fascinating. I've watched Vedic astrologers at work, but
Yeah.
I don't know what is it nakshatra?
Nakshatras. Okay, Claire
Tell
Nocti. I'm going to turn you on to this is going to change your life. Like,
okay.
get ready. This is the rabbit hole of a lifetime. Anyone who's listening to this, Claire Nocti on YouTube does these like deep dive statistical analysis, like research backed, beautiful pieces of just art, exploring all of the nakshatras.
Mm-hmm.
And they're, oh my God, it is truly like maybe one of my most favorite things I have ever come across. Like, again, it really truly made me feel like, nope, I am damn proud to be an astrologer and to
Mm-hmm.
be able to translate all of this to the lay person and to see the world through this lens.
So what are they in the chart? Is this like fixed star type of thing, or is this more like?
So it's a lunar mansion. There's
Oh, I've
20.
heard this. Okay, I've heard that word, but I don't know
Yeah,
anything
there's
about
27 lunar mansions.
it. Mhm.
So listen, I will never fully practice Vedic astrology. I don't feel right as a white woman doing so. Um,
Fair.
like I said, every once in a while, like I will sprinkle it in for my clients that have been with me, and they know I'm not like culturally appropriating, but I don't feel right personally. Like that's a personal decision, but I don't feel right personally entering that zone. But like I said, it's so, so, so fascinating to go into, and I am not the authority on it by any means. I am simply like just in wonder and in awe of, all of it.
Okay, totally fair. Yes, and I
Yeah.
will absolutely be deep diving.
Yeah.
So, what would you say is the biggest part of someone's birth chart that we can focus on related to their financial status in terms of what it might be saying about them, and then also how we can enhance that?
I would say probably the pars of fortune.
Mhm.
Par of fortune, part of fortune, fortuna. I call it the pars of fortune. She goes by many names. Um, but I would say the pars of fortune because this is the place in your chart, right? It's an Arabic part. So it's a calculation, but it's the place in your chart where spiritual and physical wealth meet, right? So again, going back to that very like unconscious view of things, for me personally, I would not have a business without the functioning of my pars of fortune. Like I literally have a business because at 7 years old, I started studying astrology because I had a crush on a boy. And then later in my 20s, I started doing it as a business because I had a relationship with a man. And I have a pars of fortune in the seventh house, conjuncting the first boy's moon and the second man's Venus. No joke. Like, cannot
That-
make.
Firstly, A, that's crazy. Secondly, I love that you know that.
What's funny too is that literally my way of teaching business astrology specifically, like relating to your ideal client and, working with that soulmate person, right? I even gained that insight and created my own system out of going on dates. Like my guides came to me when I first moved to San Diego And they were like, I was like, okay, what's next? And they go, we want you to date like it's your full-time job. Like it's your full-time business. I was going on like
Got it.
3 days. I'm not joking. Right. And so it was really fascinating because again, I have a Pars of Fortune in Capricorn in the seventh house.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I feel like that is the place of my chart, honestly, out of everything. Maybe midheaven and North Node would be next, right? But a lot of astrologers talk about those too.
Mm-hmm.
So out of everything that I truly was like, oh my God, like life makes so much sense because I wasn't a professional astrologer for almost 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was a professional actor, and that's my second house. My second house is in Leo,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it's like, but that like really, again, that destined path for me and that place of wealth, right? Both wealth of being able to have this wealth of knowledge and experience, Capricorn, right? Things that grow over time to be able to give to people and that wisdom, and also literal wealth coming my way that I'm also able to share because people are paying me a lot of money to teach them these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is the place I would look.
Cool. So I have mine in
Yeah.
the second house in Pisces.
Oh, okay, love. Yeah. So many things, right? Like literally, like making your money, managing your money, your
Mm-hmm.
possessions, being connected to energetics, the emotional realm, um, to the multidimensional, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus just like a normal human existence.
Yes. And when it comes to money, I've always had this. My husband gets annoyed. He gets annoyed because he's like, no, we have to like, do our budget and we have to do this. And I'm like, no, it's fine. We'll be fine. Like we're fine. Because
Yeah.
it's like this weird knowing or
Yeah.
magical way of thinking around money, right? It'll be fine. If I want the thing, it'll happen, right? Like I've
Yeah.
never had to, like I've scrimped and saved, but that's never good energy for me. That is never good. It's always, it
Mhm.
has to be about my belief comes first, my manifesting, my vision board, all the magical, witchy, like tapping, all the things. That's
Yeah.
where my money comes in. Like it's,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yes, I
I've
can attest to this.
I've had clients where, for instance, one has their Pars of Fortune in Taurus in the fifth house.
Mm-hmm.
For having that call with her and being like, do you ever find that clients book with you or that you just feel extra inspired in your business or to create something when you're like getting a massage or having a really nice meal, right? Especially with like your family and your kids. And she was like, oh my God, yes. Like, how did you know that? She's like, that I don't talk about this at all, because that wasn't her business at that time. And I was like, it's literally in your chart. So it was so cute because she has this tradition with her daughter where they go and get lemon coconut cake together. And I do this other thing called quantum vision boards, right? Speaking to the vision board, where I teach my clients to basically create a different kind of vision board on Pinterest that's generated by the subconscious. And she kept posting like lemon coconut cake, lemon coconut cake. So I asked her, like, well, what does that mean to you? And she goes, oh, my daughter and I, we go to Nordstrom Cafe and we go and get that together. And it's our little thing together. So I was like, great, can you go do that? And then she did it. And she was like, oh my God, I need to have this in my photo shoot. Like the lemon coconut cake needs to be in my photo shoot. And sure enough, people are commenting like, oh, I love the cake. And, like, oh, great that, that the cake made its way in. And
I
it,
love
it
that.
just,
And
it,
because she's doing it with her daughter as well. And you said fifth
yeah,
house, children. Oh my goodness.
yep, 100%. And even she messaged me the other day and she's like, because she has quite an incredible story when it comes to her family and especially one of her daughters who is differently abled. And she was like, I'm here. She's like, it's what you're always saying, but it's actually happening in real time. Like, I'm here to speak about this. I'm here to share about this. And I was like, yes. Right. And it's like, again, it's one of the reasons I'm like obsessed with the Pars of Fortune because it truly is like that juicy side of wealth where it's so holistic.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just because sometimes the second house can just be like, okay, let me make the money, right? If people don't have their Pars of Fortune in their second house like you. But it's like, one client had it in the fourth house. And I was like, when was the last time you cooked a family recipe with your children? And she was like, oh my God, like this blew everything up. So I think that's the thing is it's like, it's this really beautiful place where it's not just wealth for you, it's wealth for everyone else. And it's again where the spiritual meets the physical. So in my world, we talk a lot about anchoring heaven on earth, right? And anchoring the frequency of heaven on earth, especially in the crazy astrological times we're about to enter into the next few years, right? That are going to give like 2020 a run for their money. Um, but but that's part of it, right? It's like the parts of fortune is that beautiful merging of heaven and earth. So I think that's
Mm.
why I'm just obsessed with it.
I love that. And so, I mean, with the past fortune, I wouldn't ever give a negative spin on that. So basically, wherever it is, because a lot of people look at astrology, and I see this a lot with beginners. We're like, "Oh
Yeah.
no, I have this," and there's often this negative aspect. But this one can be good wherever it is. Like if it's in your
Yeah.
12th house, go and spend some time alone. Go meditate, right?
Oh, I have a client who has it in Pisces in the 12th house, and she's like one of the most successful people that I know.
Amazing. Whereas most people would say like 12th house, oh dear, right? But this
Yeah,
almost like makes it a positive placement
yeah,
for whatever
yeah.
you've got there. And I can imagine any aspects that it's making would also be taken into account when you're doing a reading. What else are you looking at when you're helping and guiding people?
The moon.
Mm-hmm,
I'm a
mm-hmm.
huge proponent of talking about the moon.
Okay.
'Cause I think with wealth, a lot of people focus on like Venus and Jupiter, and I love all those too. But the thing about the moon, especially in these times again, where we're called to stand out as individuals, right? That's what the new paradigm is all about. It's the shape and form of your puzzle piece as it fits into this larger collective. And your moon is like that most intimate, personal piece of you, right? It's like that's what makes you tick. I can guess people's moons long before I can guess their sun signs or even their risings
Mm.
because it's like, what do you enjoy? What do you like spending your time doing? It's also very beginner friendly, but you can also advance with so many other things, looking at, again, progressed moon, progressed lunar cycles, tracking the moon transits, right? So many different beautiful ways to work with it. So there's a great trajectory for working with the moon as well, and just kind of building knowledge as you go. But I think even going back to like the Vedic example, there's just so much information and so much cosmic possibility within our moon, right? And our moon is what stabilizes us. It's what makes us feel secure and like life is worth living and life is pleasurable and safe and enjoyable. Um, and again, especially in this day and age where we're asked to regulate our nervous systems, right? And find that healthy middle play state. The moon is also extremely important for this because what's going to regulate your specific nervous system is satisfying your moon. So if we're talking frequency, if we're talking attracting in opportunities and wealth, right? The more satisfied you are in life, the more you're going to call in opportunities that increase that satisfaction. So working with your moon is just so key because it unlocks the rest of your birth chart. Like if you're following the path of your moon only, the rest of your birth chart is going to just naturally start to unlock.
I love that. The moon it's such a critical placement. And for me, when I first found astrology, it was the
Mm-hmm.
first thing that made me go, oh, whoa. Like obviously we know about sun sign astrology. Gets a bad rap.
Mm-hmm.
We know
Yeah.
that. The thing that got me interested in astrology was actually Chiron when a random high school friend gave me a Chiron reading. Like literally just was like, oh, you don't believe in astrology? Let me look at your
Ironic
chart.
goodness.
Yeah. And they're like, Chiron's here. This is what it means. And I was like, oh, bullshit. How do you know that? Oh my God. And then that opened the rabbit hole for me. But
Yeah.
very quickly in that rabbit hole, I
Mm-hmm.
discovered the moon. Now
Yeah.
do you want to guess? Do you want to guess before I tell you?
No, go ahead. Tell me.
Okay. I have a Scorpio moon.
Beautiful.
And firstly, that was immediately like, oh, that explains so much.
Yeah.
Because as a Virgo sun, everyone's like, oh, not very emotional and all of this. And I was like, well, I don't know about that. Like, My emotions are like a wild horse. Very skilled rider needed. Like this is
Yeah, yes. You're like, we need a horse wrangler up in here.
yes, like my emotions are at running of the bulls. Like
Yeah.
this is what's happening. So that was like, oh, and it felt like I'd been seen, right? But then when I
Yeah.
found out that it was in the 10th house of career, it made so much sense. And it's so funny. We can know these things
Mhm.
and we can then forget these things for whatever reason. Something happens in life. So when I had my first child, I went on maternity leave and I was like, oh, I cannot wait to, stop working,
Yeah.
completely forgetting that my moon's in the 10th house. Quit my job, was like, yes, like I'm free as a bird. And I absolutely hated it. I ended up with severe postnatal depression. Like it affected my mental health super severely because I didn't have that sense of purpose, that 10th house of, it can be career, it can be your higher purpose, it can be what everyone's seeing you as. And suddenly everyone's seeing me as a mother, which is very opposite energy to what I feel is in my personality, my chart, all of those things. So that was a very clear example of no, I have to realign myself with this. And when I had my second born, I was sending my Witch Weekly email newsletter whilst I was in labor. And I thought that was the most fun thing ever. I was like, oh, I'm literally in labor. Let me send out this email. And I
Mhm.
didn't stop working. I kept working. I paid it back because baby. But I loved that. And I was so happy, so comfortable doing that. I mean, admittedly, I work from home, but it was
Yeah.
just such an interesting thing that even though I knew that, I forgot it. And then I came back to it and it makes such a difference in feeling fulfilled and feeling validated. And it's only from that space of that like happy moon energy that we can then start to call
Yes.
in bigger things, which is I think what you were getting at there.
Yes. It's kind of like, I think of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like that base foundational level, right? Of like, I have these things satisfied in a way that really fits me and feels good to me. Like, we have to have that, And it's like that with our moon. Like, it's been really fascinating because the South Node has been in Libra. I have a
Mm-hmm.
Libra moon. The eclipse this Wednesday, right, is literally over my moon. And it's really shown me just how much heavy lifting my Libra moon does in my life to not feel that energy,
Yeah.
and to be like, whoa, okay, even as an Aries sun and Aries Venus, right? Which I got to rediscover that piece of myself more strongly and flex those muscles, both figuratively and literally,
Mm-hmm.
right? After being like a homebody for so many years. But it was so fascinating to see, like, wow, like I am actually a super like cranky, crabby person if I'm not in a beautiful place or
Mm-hmm.
I'm not surrounded by like luxury and by harmonious relationships and stuff. Like nothing sets me off more than again like people attacking me or people being adversarial for like zero reason, right? Even as an Aries sun and Venus who can defend herself or who can set those boundaries, etc. But I'd so much rather be living in that Libra moon space. And
Mm-hmm.
it just was really fascinating because I was like, wow, all of these major relationships in my life, I kept telling myself it's just temporary, But even like I would joke, like Libra Moon Lover Girl has left the building. Like I'm not at all interested in dating and flirting and being perceived. Like I don't want to do my hair, I don't want to do my makeup. I would think I had a lobotomy if I didn't know about the astrology, And it really just, again, it proved to me once and for all, like, just how critical our moon is and
Mm-hmm.
how much even like huge transits to our moon can really change the trajectory of our life even too,
Yeah.
like you having your kids and stuff too, right? And real
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting as well. I shared this with another astrologer who I interviewed recently, Blue Cameron, because I just think it's so
Oh,
fascinating.
yeah. Yeah.
So I recently was looking at my kids' charts, which, when you look at like family members' charts, often we don't go as deep as we would with, say, a client because You
Mhm.
just kind of, you're like, oh, I know it. Yeah, whatever. I at least do that. Anyway, I was looking again at my kids' chart and I realized like I've always known they've got the same moon sign, but it took me actually looking at them both at the same time to realize their moons are at the exact same degree. And
Mm.
I was like, how did I not pick that up? Like,
Yeah.
how did I miss this? But
Yeah.
also like, whoa, no wonder they are like twins, even though they're 4 years apart. They are so close together. But
Yeah.
also every moon transit, I can pick it, especially because my husband is also the same moon sign. Our household, I can pick it the moment I was like, oh no, we're coming up to our monthly tantrums. Like,
You're like, and three, two, one.
why is everyone so out of sorts? Oh, that's right, right.
You're like, no, 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 we can't plan the family vacation for that time, honey. Like everyone's gonna be having their monthly moon tangent. We can't do that.
Monthly moon panic. I love that. So yes, it's so funny when you start, and this is one of the things when I'm teaching folks astrology or I'm doing a mentorship with someone. I usually say we start with tracking the moon, right? See where it is every single day. Where is that in your chart? But then also, how does that feel for you? Write it down. What is the like mood layout, right? We can, if you do like a mood tracking, you could essentially transpose that with a moon tracking at the same time. There would be so many similarities. Such a fascinating thing. And it's such a simple thing that people can start to look at as well.
Yeah, it's such a simple one. Because I mean, really, if you just like, I have a master class on this, and really, if you just know your house and your sign, like just that to start can fundamentally transform your life by just recognizing. Like, I had a client the other day who's a Taurus moon in the 11th house. And it's no surprise, right? Because of the transits, Uranus and everything, that she's going through a phase right now where she's in like a feminine group and they're really activating her. They're making her
Mm-hmm.
realize, oh, not only do I already do these things, but I want more of this, right? Like, and that's not wrong for me to want that, right? It's not bad for me to want to take extra time to put cream on my body and feel through that sensually or have a nice meal or whatever. And I was like, not only is that not bad, but literally, like, that's your wealth. Like, that's your little pot of gold, you know? So the more you lean into that, again, like the more even your Venus and your Jupiter and all of it's going to unlock, right? And you're just going to find, like, again, just the beautiful gold of what it is that you're here to be, right? Because I just think so many of us are so conditioned, like you know, thinking, oh, I'm not going to work when I have a child, right? Because that's what most mothers do,
Mm-hmm.
but that wasn't right for you, right? And you recognized that. So I think it just really helps us know ourselves, love ourselves, appreciate ourselves, and just understand again the contribution that we bring to the table in terms of, you know, here's what I like, here's what I enjoy, and therefore here's what I create, here's what I contribute. So yeah, it's my favorite part.
I love that. So part of fortune and then the moon as well. Do you look at Venus or are you kind of, is that like an add-on?
I really do. I have a Venus in the 10th house in Aries. Which I know most people will be like, oh, Venus and Aries. Like, I'm sorry. Marilyn Monroe had her Venus and Aries. Like, step off. Rihanna has her Venus and Aries. Shakira has her Venus and Aries. Like, do we
My
go
daughter
through,
has that, I'm pretty sure.
yeah, like, do we go through some turbulent love phases? Sure. But are we also the hottest bitches on the planet? Yes. You know, but anyways, I digress. But yeah, no, I love Venus. And because, you know, Venus is in my 10th house, I end up talking about the divine feminine and empowerment of the divine feminine, right? Aries a lot. And yeah, I feel like I explore Venus. I have a master class on Venus as well, same as the moon and Jupiter, and Powers of Fortune. But I feel like Venus is something that I really like to use in terms of mirror work. So, you know, it literally is like the Ankh. She looks like a mirror. And
Mm,
I really like to use it with my clients when either they're dating or they're just coming deeper into their divine feminine, right? Because it really helps you know like your love styles, again, like your values and stuff.
mm,
But it's more so going to translate to like how you interact with money and what you value and what you place that emphasis on. Whereas the moon is going to be like everything holistically, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And you also use human design and Akashic records in addition to astrology. So are
Yeah.
these modalities complementary or are they separate to using astrology for readings?
Yeah, great question. So I think to understand the Akashic Records piece, people have to know that I've been a channel my whole life. Like I've seen my past lives my whole life. Like if you know like Matthias de Stefano, like we're exactly the same. I saw him and I was like, oh my God, like same, brother, you know? And I was like, but he's being called to speak at like the pyramids in Egypt, and my guides are like, just go chill in the hot tub in San Diego. That's so I'm like, thanks so much. Like, but anyways, but yeah, I've seen everything. I've seen energy. I've had prophetic dreams. I've been an oracle my whole life, psychic, right? Everything my whole life. So that's just me. Like, I can't turn it off. I've had to teach myself how to turn it off, so I'm not like going crazy at the grocery store, knowing everybody's everything.
Mhm.
Um, but that part is more so just me. So it's going to show up regardless in the way that I do it. Versus I think someone else, it would be a little bit more compartmentalized. I think that that astrology and human design is a really beautiful sort of painting or window of your Akashic records, right? Of the channeled messages, everything in this life. I also have a Pisces stellium in the ninth house. So I'm like very like there are things that astrology covers, but it just leaves at, oh, that's otherworldly, or
Mhm.
oh, that's beyond this dimension or beyond this galaxy, right? Whereas I feel like channeling in the Akashic records brings it, expands it out further, because astrology is meant to be geocentric. It's meant to be, this is life on Earth,
Mhm.
right? So the others expand it. And then as for human design, astrology is a part of human design. So my learning curve for human design, which was much smaller going into it versus somebody else's, who, you know, is unfamiliar with astrology. So, you know, a lot of human design, because it is astrology, or you're looking at like transits as they're transiting through gates and stuff like that. Um, that definitely helps, and there's a play in between, but then human design is also just its own thing, and I find helps more with like the day-to-day stuff, versus I think astrology is better for looking at cycles, looking at collective energies, again looking at things like, oh, how can I work with my moon in this very specific way, right? And then human design would back it up and say, oh, and your moon is in gate 14. So that's also going to open up this area of life for you as you explore those themes, you
Mhm.
know?
We have a listener question as well around this. So,
Mhm.
in the Suburban Witches Society, one of our listeners, Chantal, which folks who have listened to previous episodes might know Chantal as Shantoodles, and she wants to know, what on earth is an Akashic Record guide?
Yeah, that's a great question. Okay, so because I've just seen the records my whole life,
Hmm.
right? I was listening to a podcast back in 2019, and this woman was talking about how she like received the Akashic records one day and everything. And I was like, oh my God, it's the library. Like I've seen the library my whole life. Like that's so cool. Anyways, I'm like such an Elle Woods in this world where I'm like, what? Like, you know? But anyways, I was like, oh yeah, my guides were like, yeah, the library. Why did we choose her again? Anyways, so yeah, so a lot of people will read your records, right? A lot of people will say, oh, this is your past life. I see you as this, or like this is your future, this is where you're going. I have the ability and the gift, thankfully, to literally take people into their own records. So I do what are called portals. And basically, we like, I think about it like Blue's Clues. We just like jump into the painting, right? It's like Blue's good, dude. We can too, right? So it's that kind of energy. where I literally just take you into your own Akashic records. So, like Blue in the painting, you can explore, you can look around, you can guide yourself. It's similar to like a guided meditation, but also not because they're highly activating. Um, it's literally like absorbing you into the world that I always see and always know. So even as my clients are going through it and they're like, oh my God, I'm so surprised by this, that, and the other thing, like I already know those things, but they're getting to experience the full embodiment of it. So that's the difference between like an Akashic record reader and an Akashic record guide.
Does it teach them how to then do it for themselves, or do they always need you as like a guide with them?
It's less so teach and it's more so, again, the embodiment and the activation that they know what it feels like and they know how to access it now. So, no,
Mhm.
they don't need me to be there. I can, but like one woman, I took her in and immediately she just went to like the heart womb of the universe, just like straight. And she was like crying, sobbing. She's like, "Oh my God." Because she had not even been able to do like a meditation, like anything. She's like, "I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this." And it was like literally just right there. And then for years now, she said, like, I can go back to that place because I know what it feels like. I know how to get there, you know? So I've always, my whole life, been this sort of like walking activator and walking portal for people. I call myself like sort of like human Moldavite. Like the second I enter your life, it's like, get ready because you're about to like majorly up level into heaven on earth. Um, Now I'm aware of that, so I can, help assist people in it. But my whole life, it was like, whoa, why is this happening the second I connected with you?
Mm. Are,
Right?
are you a manifester in human design?
No, I'm a manifesting generator. I'm a
Okay,
force
manifesting generator. Hmm.
manifesting generator. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
Mhm.
So I'm a manifester, and I don't do much human design. I've only dabbled into it, but that's one
Yeah.
of the things I took from that being like this almost like initiatory energy, like initiating people into it, because that's I would relate with that in terms of people meet me and they're like, oh my God, now all these things are opening up. I'm like,
Yes.
yeah.
I have, well, and it's interesting you bring that up because I do have heavy manifester energy, even as a manifesting generator, like
Mm.
some of us do. So that's also part of it too.
Yeah, super interesting. Do you incorporate human design in terms of wealth as well, or is that more an astrology thing?
Oh yeah, 100%. One of the things I really like to do with human design, which again is unorthodox, it's my own thing. I developed this one day like out of nowhere, but it's interesting because I have some pretty prominent placements in gate 14, which is just this really important place for, again, this like holistic wealth, right? In human design. And I can literally see someone's like gate 14 in them and see what's blocking it. So that's one of the like fun things we do with human design. But yeah, like, I mean, wealth, especially in this day and age, is so beautiful because we get to approach it from such a holistic standpoint that truly like talking about anything in terms of your human design or astrology helps your wealth story,
Mhm.
right? Both holistically and financially. So yeah, we do a lot of different kinds of wealth work with human design as well.
Love that. And
Mhm.
before we finish up, what would you say is the one, I guess, blocking thing? So we've looked at things that can help like unblock or help people focus on, but what's something that's usually blocking people in terms of wealth when they're coming to you saying, I'm stuck, I can't earn money, and everything I earn just slips through my fingers? Like, what is that common denominator, I guess, for blocking people?
I would say two things and they go hand in hand. Conditioning, like not just trusting the way that you're supposed to do it, and comparison. A lot of times, especially with business owners, they're like, oh, but it worked for so and so. Why is it not working for me? Right. And it's like, well, because that's not your way of doing things. Right. You're here to create something different. Like for me, my family, right, going back to the Uttara Bhadrapada thing, my family is all about like you work hard, you're proud of what you earn and you work really hard for it. And that just has never worked for me. Like never. But living in a space of luck, of synchronicity, of, just belief and manifestation has always worked for me. So it's really interesting because try as I might to try to fit into that old model, it's just literally impossible. Like I'm designed to be this expander and to do things that people have never done before. And the universe keeps finding me and asking me to do that no matter what. So I always like to say, like, it's the phrase, if you tell a fish to climb a tree, it's going to spend its entire life thinking it's stupid, right? It's like, that's not what fish are here to do. Fish are here to
Mhm.
fit this other thing. So truly, it's a process of embodying things for yourself. And that's what I see as people's biggest blocks is when they don't trust their own path, right?
Mhm.
They don't trust the way that they're uniquely here to do things.
Yeah, without giving too much away on this person, I'm going to share that fish climbing a tree thing. There's
Hmm.
a person in my family who I offered to do an astrology report for because they always, always have trouble. Life is tricky and it is, what's the word? Like every single job they take is hard and it's just like nothing ever goes right. And they're just sort of not happy with a lot of things in that area. And when I did their just a natal chart reading, right? I was shocked because I was like, I must have the birth time wrong. This is not this person at all. But we checked right birth time. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to write this as if I don't know them because it's the best thing to do possible and just
Yeah.
send it and see how it's received. And pretty much immediately came back from them and the partner that was like, this must be wrong. And I was like, that's fine. We could have the wrong birth time, whatever. Anyway, they're like older. A day goes past, so they've obviously slept on it. And I get an email back saying, actually, this is me before life happened. And I was like, oh. And I was like, it's
Yeah.
not too late to change. Like, because this is like two different people. This is how different it was. And I was like, it's not too late to change and to do those things. They're like, no, nah, I'm too old now. I can't learn a new career. I can't learn new skills. This is where I am now. I just have to deal with it. And I was like, oh, this is so sad. Like, we can definitely do it. But again, life and conditioning has just almost put them into a box and kept them there,
Yeah.
right? It's saying you have to go climb that tree. And it's like, no, 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 you're supposed to be swimming. What are you doing?
Oh my God, it makes me want to cry.
No. So it's been interesting. But since then, like it's been a couple of years. That was probably like 5 years ago, right? Since
Mhm.
then, I've noticed little inklings where some of that deeper self has started to be allowed to crack through. So I have hope. I have
Yeah.
hope. Maybe, maybe.
Yeah.
Second Saturn return's coming up. So
I love that. I mean, I feel like as astrologers, part of our cosmic purpose, right, is not only that alignment, but alignment through just being that mirror
Mhm.
and saying like, hey, here are your gifts, here are your talents, like here is your contribution, like here's your joy, right? And for people like that person to take in and really process, like, again, how aligned am I with that? And if anything has gotten me out of that alignment, how do I come back?
Mhm.
You know? It's really beautiful. I do so many things because I'm a manifesting generator and an Aries, Lord. And I've been in business for 7 years. So, but I do this thing called soul tone frequencies, where basically it's honestly the most powerful thing that I do. But whenever I do it, I always go back and like look at people's charts as they integrate all of it. And it's really beautiful to see them again, just further align with the things that we've talked about astrologically, that they're like, oh, that's so hard for me, or like, oh, such like this, and this happened, and I haven't done that since. And then one day they're like, oh my God, Katherine, I'm going to take a dance class. Oh my God, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that, And it's so beautiful because it's like, it's in those, it's like activating it on this like DNA, like remembrance cell level. But it's so cool because it's like, yeah, I think people in their heart of hearts, like if they were allowed to follow what they wanted to from jump, like I think so many of our world's problems would be solved, you know. I'm truly
Mm.
a believer in like this is the way that we do anchor in that heaven on earth, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Well, before we jump off, can I, because I wanted to, because I was drawn to it, can I pull an oracle card for you?
Okay.
Now, I want to pull one
Yeah. What's the
for,
deck?
it is one of my favorites. This is, this is
I love
called
it. Girl.
the Cherokee Goddess Oracle, and it
Ooh.
jumped out at me today.
Oh, gorge.
Now,
I don't know.
I use this one. It's no longer available. Like it's no longer in print. So I feel very lucky. I use this one for word of the year readings, right? To give you a
Oh,
word that will encompass your year or can be like your focal point for the year, right? How does that feel?
I love it.
All right, cool. Cool, cool, cool.
Let's go.
Let's go. It is very feminine. I mean, it's the Cherokee Goddess Oracle, right? All right. Let's have a look. Which one's coming up for you?
I just had my half birthday, so
Ooh.
it's a good time for it.
Oh, I feel like this is very aligned for you in terms of some of the things we've been talking about. So,
Okay.
what it does is it gives us a word for the year
Mhm.
ahead. So, again, focus point or the thing that we might be called to do, etc. But then it also gives us a goddess to work with. Okay.
Mm,
I'm going to show
beautiful.
you what this looks like and I'll describe it to everyone as well. So, the word is soul family. And the goddess is Parimbo. And at the bottom, it says, you are united under a common cause. Now, I'll read out what I usually write out for this one, for this particular card, when I do my word of the year readings, which are usually only available December and January. So, this word of the year is soul family. Okay. So, keep that in mind, even though it's technically two words. But it basically says that the year ahead is going to be about deep friendship and community. Some suggestions for the theme of soul family are physically to be open to new encounters with people, make new friends, host gatherings with like-minded people. Spiritually, develop the ability to lucid dream, which I'm pretty sure you probably already can do. You may be able to facilitate reunions with others in the dream world and pass messages in this manner. And mentally, meditate, opening your third eye, working on your crown chakra, all of that. Personally, allowing yourself to let go of old ties that are no longer aligned with the person you are now. When you find your soul family, we treat that relationship as sacred. So remember that. When making big decisions, ask yourself, how will doing this thing or this outcome, this idea align with my soul family? And the goddess associated, as I said, is Parimbo, a Brazilian creatrix goddess of forgiveness, devotion, banishing, justice, and karma. Her symbols are light and lunar emblems. From her home in the moon, which is so funny because we've been talking about the moon. From her home in the moon, she gently guides human life in benevolent ways. But to balance this, she also teaches important lessons in justice through karmic punishment. So the advice is to try working with Parimbo for the year ahead to see what blessings come from this partnership. And in the card, there's a moon. It almost looks like a triple moon because there's two crescents either side of it. We have this beautiful woman with this crown standing in a garden. It's obviously sort of at night. And there's even a white peacock standing behind her, and she's got lots of wildflowers as well. It's a really pretty card.
I feel like it's super aligned with what I've been percolating on creating next, you
Mm.
know? Soul family is always, again, Cancer rising, moon in the fourth house. It's always a huge theme for me. But I feel like lately it's kind of been honestly the driving factor for, again, where I'm called next, like what I want to
Mm.
create next. So yeah, it definitely resonates.
Amazing. Wonderful. Now, where can people find you online? How can people work with you? All that jazz.
Yeah, so it's super easy to find me because I'm the only person in the world with my name. So it's Katherine, Katherine, last name Wehler, Wehler. So katherinewehler.com, Katherine_Wehler on Instagram, Katherine Christine Wehler on Facebook. I think it's Katherine Wehler on TikTok. And what was I gonna say about that? Yeah, it's super easy to find me. I love honestly receiving like DMs too. So if people listen and they have further questions, I would love to know. If you want to work together and you have questions about that, we can absolutely discuss it. Otherwise, everything is on my website as well. And I know we talked about this, but we're going to offer your listeners, it's called the Astro Wealth Code, and we're offering them $100 off so they can get it
Amazing.
for $97 instead of the usual $397. And that's where we explore all of the wealth in their birth chart. So everything we talked about today and more, plus transits, progressions, any questions that they have about business, ideal client, that kind of thing. And that is with code WITCH, all in caps. So yeah.
That is amazing. Thank you so much. And I think everyone's going to absolutely adore that. I know that especially when we talk about wealth and financial astrology, that sort of thing, it's always such a hot topic. It's always something people really want help with or want to know about. So I have no doubt that's going to be very popular. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your energy with us today. It's been absolutely a pleasure. And I can't wait to chat again in the future and yeah, keep connecting.
Yeah. And thank you for my reading too. That was
You're
a
welcome.
nice little surprise. I love
It's
it.
just been sitting here because I was like, I pulled it out just beforehand. I was like, I just have to use this deck. So yeah, take what
Yeah.
feels right from that and yeah, see how it goes.
I love it. Thank you.
Wonderful. You're welcome. All right. Everyone else, we will chat with you next time. Was that not amazing or was that amazing? Now, Katherine has offered an amazing discount code for their Astro Wealth Code offering, and the coupon code is WITCH, WITCH, and that will give $100 off. $100 off. So wonderful. You're making money at that point. So definitely check that out. Now, if you know someone who would get a kick out of this episode, please share it with them. I'd love you to share at least one episode with someone whenever you can, because that is how podcasts grow, by you going, oh my God, listen to this. Share the fun, share the love. It helps me out. And then you have someone to talk about the episodes with as well. Next week, we will be talking about tarot zapping your energy. So what to do about it, how to stop it, why it happens, and all of that jazz. I hope to see you there.